Shock poll as we enter the last couple of hours before Election Day. Iowa for Harris? Could it be so? Probably not, but I do think it is an exciting result and might have much more to say about states other than Iowa than it does about Iowa. So yes, Trump no longer leads in a state that he carried twice, according to a new Iowa poll. Well, carried twice in general presidential elections. I just want to remind everyone that Ted Cruz beat him in the Iowa caucus in 2016. I only mention that because Donald Trump is a loser, and also because Donald Trump claimed that Ted Cruz stole the Iowa caucus because that's who he is. But anyway, in this new poll, the Selzer poll, which is considered very accurate over the last decade plus, she is leading by 3 points, which, if that is accurate, is a big turnaround from how the race looked just a couple of months ago. So there you have the breakdown that has her at 47, Trump at 44, RFK Jr. taking 3%. Love it, leave it like that. Let's hope he goes for 3, maybe 5. Can we get 8 points? But anyway, so that has women favoring her over Trump 56 to 36, 20 points in Iowa in that poll. Independents 46-39 for her. They'd previously favored Trump in Iowa polls released earlier this year. And let's talk about earlier this year. Because when they polled this a few months ago, back when Biden was the candidate, in the olden days, Trump was leading by 18. It's the same poll. Now you can say, I don't think that poll shows what will really happen. That's fine. We can have that conversation. But it's the same poll that had him up 18 points a few months ago, a 21-point swing, which says a couple of things. One, it says, thank God we got rid of Joe Biden. And 2, maybe there's something happening there. And so when you actually dive into what's happening, obviously women are going hard for Harris. Importantly, you have late deciders breaking 2-1 for Harris. If that is the case in swing states around the country, I think this thing might be over. Yeah. Maybe that's very exciting. Also, older women in particular going for Harris, which I love. Older voters in general going for Harris, including older men, which is awesome. And it's so strange. She's getting the young vote. She's also getting the extremely old vote. If those things are true, she might still well not take Iowa, but she potentially maybe is strongly placed to take Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, those sorts of things.
A storm is tearing up the digital media industry. Only our audience can save us in these difficult times. Help us reach our goal of 100,000 new members at tyt.com/team.
So what do you make of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it is really heartening. I mean, I hate that we are in this situation when it comes to abortion rights or in this country, but I also think it's a lesson that our rights are fragile and we have to continue to expand them and defend the rights that we've already won in this country. And we cannot take them for granted. As we see, just a Republican president appoints a bunch of crazy, religious zealots to the Supreme Court, and suddenly we lose a right that we've had for 50 years and our lives are in danger. I think that is massive. And I also think, I just want to say, I think a lot of young men are being appealed to sort of their most fragile selves by the Trump campaign. Your masculinity is going down the drain. You're losing, rights somehow. This is why women don't want to date you. And that really appeals to kind of again, as you said, the trashiest version of men. But men are also incredibly solidaristic, and they stand next to women in their lives. And I also think that you saw that after Hillary Clinton lost. In 2016, there was a massive outpouring in the Women's March. And I was in DC. It was the largest march I've ever been a part of, the largest I'd ever seen. It was, I think, one of the largest in American history. And there were so many young men just as disturbed by what the prospect of a Trump administration could mean and eventually did mean. So look, I think there's, again, John, I'm no matter what happens, if there is a Trump victory, if there is a Trump loss, I think we need to brace ourselves for a certain amount of violence. And I think we know who that comes from. Just ask the FBI who they're more afraid of when it comes to right-wingers or left-wingers. But I do think, and it's not there, we have to also think about like healing. Like, how do we actually move forward as a collective body and de-radicalize some of the people whose most base and most violent instincts have been appealed to by this campaign? And again, I think that happens whether or not he wins or loses. You know, I mean, and if he wins, I think we obviously, we'll talk about it later, but we have to redouble our efforts, but we also need to find off ramps for this movement because there have to be them.
Yeah. I mean, look, as I have always said to young men, I understand that you are scared of the future. You're particularly scared about your prospects for relationships. General advice, I'm not saying I will tell you who you should listen to, but you are probably not going to solve your problems with women by listening to advice provided by men that women find grotesque. That's probably not going to work, I think. In any event, we're going to close with this. Donald Trump responding to the Iowa poll. By the way, you could just ignore it. It probably won't even end up being true. He'll probably win Iowa. But instead, this is what he says. And as you hear everything that Donald Trump has to say today, I want you to listen to what he says, and you tell me if it's the way you communicate, if you think you're about to win this thing, or if you're really worried that you're not. Okay, here's the first example. No president has done more for farmers and the great state of Iowa than Donald J. Trump. In fact, it's not even close. All polls, except for one heavily skewed towards the Democrats by a Trump hater who called it totally wrong the last time. That is 100% not true. It was very accurate last time. But anyway, by a lot. I love the farmers and they love me. The Just Out Emerson poll has me up by 10 points in Iowa. Thank you. That last bit is true. There is an Emerson poll where he's up by 10 points in Iowa, which is why I say he's probably going to win it. But I love that. I love the farmers and they love me. I love them whether they like it or not. And let's just read this from Charlie Kirk. If Kamala was actually competitive in Iowa, why hasn't Tim Walz visited, let alone Kamala? Walz is the governor next door. If there was a remote hope, he would be camping out there. Well, no, that still doesn't make it strategically a necessary place to use your resources, but she hasn't spent money in Iowa because she'll lose big there. This poll is fake. This is a media design tactic to suppress turnout. Look at the candidates action. Okay, let's just pause it for 1 second, okay? Now, look, obviously, I don't generally have a lot of respect for the political analysis of Charlie Kirk or whatever because of everything that he's ever said and done. Look at what he is saying. So they are releasing a poll. They have decided as a pollster to torch their reputation, to give her a chance to win a state that isn't a necessary part of her path to victory, doesn't have that many electoral college votes, to suppress turnout, okay? So previously, Republicans thought they got this thing in the bag. Now they think they might lose it, and that suppresses turnout? Why would that suppress turnout? You were probably apathetic as a Republican in Iowa before. Now you're not as a result of this. If anything, this would inspire turnout, you dunce. I'm not saying that he should rethink his theory because it's not a theory. He doesn't believe anything he says. He's lying. But to the Republicans who read his tweets and are like, yeah, that makes sense. I think he's a genius. Is he? Think for 2 seconds about the argument. He is making the exact opposite argument that reality would demand.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're going to discard all polls. Yeah, they're going to discard all the polls that don't make them look good. And Charlie Kirk wants to wash his hands of running a piss poor ground campaign, which he's doing, which people are logging that they knock doors even though they're having a sandwich down the street.
Members make a difference here at TYT. You help make the show happen, and we see you in the chat with your loyalty badge. Click the join button to become a member today.